Hello everyone, welcome to the Wind Down. As you can see, I have my faux rosé, and Hillary gets to partake in a true adult beverage.
I am having this winemaker's blend from Apothic Winery, and it is really delicious.
Yes.
I'm very excited. A really nice Friday night wine.
I'm very jealous. Cheers. I'll go with it.
So I'll drink wine and talk finance, and you'll drink Fosé and talk finance.
Exactly. And the funny thing about all of this is that when you find out you're pregnant, it's so overwhelming. Your life is about to change. Your body's about to go through like an Olympic event. And the one thing you need is a drink. It's like the one thing you can't have. Unless you're in Italy, apparently. Stanley Tucci. I was watching his new show, and he was talking to a woman who works at one of the restaurants, and she's like, oh, all pregnant women drink wine here. It's good for the baby.
Well, I had a cousin who had her first child while they were living abroad in Ireland, and she was told multiple times that having a half a pint of Guinness every single day during her pregnancy, as well as having liqueur of cassis, like cassis liqueur, was good for the baby.
My mother-in-law, who's British, told me I should be drinking Guinness because of the iron. But I don't think there's iron in it.
I don't know if there is.
I think I looked and I was like, I don't think there's...
But
maybe it's something else that's good for the baby. I don't know.
Yep. So, you know, there's definitely regional aspects to drinking, but here in the U.S., we don't get to when you're pregnant.
We are on the safe side of things, don't we? No fun over here. No fun at all. Well, I could use a drink to be talking about this today because life has changed a lot since getting married, growing a family, buying a house. Yep. We have accumulated more financial and personal just responsibilities, right? And so we're going to be talking about how do you maintain, you know, putting aside some money to indulge in your relationship and keep that relationship alive and celebrate your relationship with your partner, because it does get a little bit harder as you get more responsibilities,
and especially if you have kids.
Yeah.
There's definitely a change because spending time, especially quality time together, can just cost more.
Yes. It does cost more because you're factoring in childcare, which is costly.
Yeah.
It's super costly. And so suddenly date night is double the expense that it would have been before.
Right.
So then suddenly you're like, oh, we can skip this, we're fine.
We can go to 5 p.m. dinner with our child and it'll be fine.
It's so romantic.
It's so romantic.
I was thinking about this because not long ago, I feel like after I met my husband, it just like everything unfolded very quickly. We got married, we bought a house. That following year, I got pregnant that summer, and now I'm on to the second. So it was like a lot of adulting happened in a very short period of time. And prior to that, in my relationship with my husband and relationships prior, I'm sorry, Tam, you were not the only one. It was really easy to just indulge in relationships, like the relationships that you were in, and really like focus on growing that relationship and doing fun things and having new experiences. And I feel like that was a huge financial priority in my life prior to the added responsibilities that come when you start adding on other expenses. Children.
I totally agree. My husband and I love to eat. We still do. And that was one of our big things, was that we would budget and set aside money for going out to dinner at especially like places where it was hard to get a reservation.
Like Michelin restaurants.
Yeah. And when we traveled, this was how we traveled, which was also another passion that we like to spend money on. I would research the historical things, the touristy things to do, and my husband would research, and still does. And this is still how we travel. It's just modified. He researches the restaurants that we need to hit, or the food that we need to eat while we're there.
Right.
So it's a great combination. I like the way we travel together.
Yeah.
But, and part of that was hitting some restaurants that like we might not have spent money on at home, but like, our dining experiences that we really wanted to have while we were on vacation. And now
it's different. I mean, how much of that, and we talked about this on Coffee with Kim and Hills yesterday, about extravagance and frugality versus frugality. And I remember my husband and I, before we had children, which it's funny looking back on these conversations because you don't know what it's like until you have a child. But we would agree, we would say we would always put our relationship first because it sets the best example for your child, and not to allow them to consume us, but to make sure that we really set time aside for ourselves. Oh my gosh, it's so funny now thinking about that. And I try to remind myself of it because I think it's important. So with that being said, we have a lot more financial goals in place right now that are really important to us. A college fund, things, emergency savings.
Right.
Maybe an I-bond soon, who knows? Just keeps expanding. There's a lot of stuff going on. We have a mortgage now. There's things that we want to do to our house. We still have like dreams of expanding our home and things like that.
Plus childcare, which definitely takes
health insurance,
time and money.
Yes, but childcare is major when it comes to like trying to spend one-on-one time outside of the house with your husband. And a huge example of how things have shifted is and my husband makes fun of me for this, but I celebrate hard, like every holiday, hard. Down to the holidays, people don't celebrate, right? Like Tam.
So tax day, did you celebrate tax day?
You saw me. I was like, where's our costumes? I would. But so even Valentine's Day, like our first Valentine's Day together, I was like, no, we should, like, I love a reason to, I don't know, like revel in life and celebrate and like, And even when I was single, I would like go out with my girlfriends on Valentine's Day and like have a blast.
Oh yeah.
I just love a reason to celebrate.
Yeah.
I think it's nice.
Yeah.
And so if our anniversary ever came up, like we are doing something, we are getting gifts, it's going to be a thing, right? And so this year, last week, it was our 3-year wedding anniversary. I'm pregnant. I have my daughter. He's working. There's just so much going on. There's so much going on, and we have all these plans in our head and he and I are like ships in the wind right now, like truly. And honestly, I've been neglecting that one-on-one time.
Right.
And I was happy to do nothing. I said, don't get me anything. I don't want anything. Don't. And I meant it, and that's not me at all. And so I think there's something to finding a balance.
Right.
Because I think our original goal was really important of finding time for each other to really like maintain a strong relationship.
Right.
But also there's the reality of life and the financial situation that you're in now. And it's just figuring out like where your priorities are and how and when it's appropriate to fit that time in.
Right.
Some people do have weekly date nights.
Yeah, I was just going to say I had a coworker who has a weekly date night with her husband every single week. They have a night every Wednesday. They spend time together, and it can vary whatever they do, but they're always out of the house.
Right.
And when she was telling me about this at the beginning, I was like, wow, that's couple goals. And I was also like, wow, that's expensive.
That's expensive. I mean,
it definitely takes a certain level of not only commitment, and by the way, she's a mom to 3 kids, not just 1, not just 2.
I understand getting out of the house.
Like, yeah. But it was also something that she and her husband had agreed upon even before they had kids, and they stuck to, which I also was like, that is very commendable because, like you said, before you have a kid, you're like, it's going to change your lives a lot of ways, but not this.
Right.
And it does.
It does. It does. And like we're kind of in like we're still new to it, right?
Yeah.
We have a 1-year-old. Everything's still kind of fresh, and we've been bombarded with these life things because we just did it all quickly.
Right.
And so we're still kind of navigating how to balance it all. I think financially prioritizing the relationship, as we talked about yesterday, about like extravagance versus frugality, like we both talked about how travel is really, really important. And it's something like we want to be a part of our lives.
Right.
Well, I want to maintain like a closeness, to my husband and our
Right.
relationship.
Yeah.
And so figuring out how to do that, whether it be getting out and spending money or like when the kid's asleep, creating just like cooking together at home and like watching a movie and maybe not talking about the kid for...
Good luck.
I know, it's impossible. I'm like, let's not talk about it. Guess what she did today? You'll never guess though, I have to tell you this. Like every night it happens.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Then it like spirals into like more things.
Yeah.
Like she started splashing in the bath today. Can you believe it? So ridiculous.
It is very exciting.
It is.
Very exciting stuff.
Yep.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back to talk a little bit more about this.
Welcome back, everyone. All right, we are going to dive a little bit more into how to set time aside for your relationship and factor in the cost of it.
Right. And I think there's a couple different ways to do it, and it kind of depends on where you are, both in your relationship and where you are in your family building. Because I think, especially when you have really young kids, there's so much intensity that goes into... I mean, there's always intensity when you're a parent.
Yeah.
But with little kids, there's just
a lot of energy.
So much energy.
Yeah.
And as they grow older, you get to let them experience more on their own.
Yeah.
And therefore it gives you the chance to like kind of take a beat. Now you always have to watch them and
course, but...
all that jazz, but it's a little bit less intensive.
Right.
Childcare is always still the same cost, but
Yeah.
You're able to possibly have a little bit more time together and feel less exhausted throughout the day because you aren't so physically exhausted from
I think that's
taking care of kids.
Yes, I think that's a huge part of it is you just feel like you don't have anything more to give and you don't even realize that a date night is still giving something of yourself.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, I'm done here.
Yeah. You're like, I'm going to bed. Yes, it's 8:15 and I'm good. Okay, good night. Yeah.
I mean, we've found ourselves in the position because we have a rotation of, some options of sitters. It's always good to have
multiple.
Yes.
Do not put your eggs all in one basket.
No, do not. Get multiple. I'm telling you this right now. Because even with multiple, you'll find there's none available like when you need them. But we do have some that are available like specifically for date nights. They're like free in the evenings. They have daytime jobs and they're free for evenings to do date nights. And we totally could be utilizing this.
Right.
And it was something that like we planned for. We found, sitters that we could do this. But the reason we did not do it is because we were like, do we need to spend,
right,
$100-something
just on the childcare plus
just
dinner.
on the childcare?
Yeah.
And not to mention if you're getting drinks. Like right now I'm a cheap date, but
Right.
we used to go out and, we would get drinks after drinks after drink and no worries about who has to get up with the kid the next morning.
Yes.
And, there's no argument there, because it's a different world.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world and you're factoring in a whole lot of other things. So, I mean, it's another thing that I think about as well, because we talk about it too. Like, I think one of your Healthy Wealthy Wednesday tips was like finding places that you spend and putting that money into your emergency savings. And I think about that a lot with things. So like if he and I were planning a date night, I'm like, okay, how much would we have spent tonight? Let's say $200.
Right. Which is a chunk of change.
But
But
that is a chunk of change.
But it's also...
And what if you're doing it every week?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you said, hey, we're not going to do every week. We're going to do it every other week. And then the week we don't do it, we're going to take that $200.
Right.
And we're going to put it might make me feel a little more at ease, like we're being responsible for the family.
Yeah.
And also prioritizing our relationship.
And probably every other week as well, or even just once a month. Right now is probably where you might be,
baby,
where you might be at, like, physically wise, like in terms of being able to like actually
have the
show up
and show up.
And
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe
try and look nice.
I mean, they've seen you at your worst. It's fine. I mean, just kidding.
All day, every day.
But I think that there's something about budgeting it in, and I think that that's a great idea. Is if you used to go out 4 times a week, and you're really, or 4 times a month, and
it used to be like 4 times a week.
Right. Right. But now maybe it's 4 times a month that you're hoping for, but you only really get out once. Trying putting that money into your savings or into investing it so that you are utilizing that money for your family.
Yeah, and there is something romantic about that too.
Yeah.
I mean, there really is. Like when you're like, being proactive to, set aside a budget for your family, whatever it may be. I mean, it could even be like a vacation budget for the family too, like whatever it is. There's something that's very, I don't know, it's kind of romantic in a sense.
In a very grown-up sense of the term.
I'm telling you, things change.
They do. They really do. And I think also saying to yourself that things are different and being on the same page with your partner at that time. Because I think that's where the disconnect can happen and where, it's interesting. I was looking up divorce rates just because I'm curious, not because of anything else.
It's an uplifting topic.
And divorce rates came to their highest in the U.S. in 1981 at 53%.
Oh.
They are now at around 45% last year.
Okay.
Which is actually very interesting. I would have thought that they went up
after
with
the
pandemic. But
people were like, I've had enough of you.
But the other interesting part is that more people are not even getting married in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's why the divorce rate really isn't as high as it probably would have been in the 80s.
Right.
Because people just aren't getting married.
Right.
But it's still a huge financial burden to pull yourself out of a relationship if you've been together for so long and have mingled finances and bought houses together, all the things.
Yeah.
But I think, there's definitely something towards working on your relationship and making sure you're on the same page as your partner.
Well, because there might be a season where you're like, okay, we need to set aside a little more time for us.
Yeah.
And there might be a season where you're like, we have so many other things going on.
Right.
We're good.
Right.
We'll check in and make sure.
Right.
But like, this can't be the priority right now. But like, you just have to like keep that communication up.
And I think, a lot of divorces are actually, Spain has one of the highest divorce rates, which I also thought was interesting. And their number one reason cited is financial differences.
Wow.
And so finance is a huge part of getting married and getting divorced. I think one of the things, if you're stressed about money, which can be one of the major causes of divorce, you don't have the opportunity to put in a budget for spending time together by going out to dinner.
Right.
Figuring out a ritual, maybe it is a weekly ritual, maybe it's every other week, whatever you can handle energy-wise, but that is something that is for the two of you.
Right.
And maybe it's watching a movie together on Netflix. You're already paying for the service. Like, it's not going to cost you anything extra.
Right.
But like popping some popcorn.
Totally.
Getting like, maybe some wine. I don't know. But just making it feel like something a little bit more of an event that you're spending time together.
Yep.
Versus, going out and spending the money on the childcare and the money on whatever else.
Right.
Like going to the movies. Who does that? I don't know. Like spending money on a babysitter plus like how expensive movies are these days.
Oh my gosh, especially in New York City.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like going to Disney or something, but not. It's nuts. But, as we're still working towards normalizing, like being financially communicative.
Right.
And transparent, like financial transparency, I think that's going to help a lot of relationships kind of fight through that barrier of financial stress that causes these splits, because it's for a long time, people just did not talk about their finances. So it's much harder to, navigate ways to factor in, a date night if you're hiding things about what's going on with you financially because maybe you're nervous or you're in a little credit card debt and you haven't told you what was this called? It's financial infidelity. Maybe you're committing financial infidelity and your partner doesn't know some things that are going on.
Right.
And you're too scared to tell them. Conflict arises.
I think one of the things that my husband and I do, and it might not sound exciting or sexy.
Hey, to each their own. What's sexy for you might not be for someone else. And that's okay.
But every month we sit down and we look at our finances and we look at it together. Ooh, spicy.
You are married to a financial advisor, so
true.
I mean, maybe.
It's true. But it has helped us be, especially me, more honest with our finances and figure out where we can spend a little bit more, where we can save a little bit more, and really be on the same page. And I think that has actually helped our relationship.
I could see that
because not only are we on the same page with where our current finances are, but we set goals every 6 months and we work on how are we going to get there. And then we reevaluate every 6 months.
Right.
And again, it doesn't sound very exciting, guys. And not always is.
But it's communication.
It's the communication and it's the partnership. And it just feels, and having it once a month just makes it feel less intimidating than having it once a year or once every 6 months.
How much can change within a month?
Exactly.
To where you're like, oh no, I forgot to do this and they're going to see it. And it's just like, it's staying on top of the communication.
Exactly.
So you're never falling behind. And I think that in itself is how you maintain a healthy relationship. Oh, wow, we're unraveling a lot right now. It's not just about date night.
So maybe plan a sexier date night or like a little bit more fun date night, but then also have your date night with your partner about your finances.
Well, light some candles, put on some tunes, sit down together on the couch, get cozy with a blanket, and just lay out those finances. Hot.
Ooh, spicy.
Tam's gonna come home one night and I'm gonna have everything. He's gonna be like, "What are you doing?" Like, come on, baby. He'll be like, "What happened to you?" And I'll film the whole thing.
Yeah, I can't wait. I really want to see how this.
I would do that to him,
yeah.
actually. I do like to film him in silly moments, and it would just be good for the show, I think.
I think so too.
Well, wow, I think that is a wrap on another episode of The Wind Down. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week while I drink some faux wine and Hillary drinks a bottle of wine. Thanks for joining us. See you soon. Cheers.